Music and New Orleans. The history of New Orleans is different from the history of many other U.S. cities. The city was founded in 1718 by the French. Starting in 1763, the city was governed by the Spanish. In 1803, the Louisiana territories were again controlled by France, but they were quickly sold to the United States in a transaction called the Louisiana Purchase. New Orleans began with a French-speaking culture that included a love of good food, wine, music, and dancing. Later, Africans, some free and some slaves, arrived in the city and brought West Indian culture from the Caribbean. French, Spanish, and African Caribbean cultures mixed to create a new language and culture called Creole. After that, African Americans from around the U.S. moved to New Orleans, adding yet another cultural and musical element to the city. Jazz music began in the African American communities, but it was also influenced by the ethnic diversity of New Orleans. Bands, which were led by brass instruments such as trumpets and trombones, participated in many community events like parades and even funeral processions. Music was a part of every celebration. In the late 1800s, some musicians started improvising or changing the music and making up new melodies as they played. This was also a time when the Creole and African American musicians began to combine their styles. In the early 1900s, the popularity of jazz spread to other cities, especially to clubs in Chicago and New York City. Louis Armstrong, 1901 to 1971, who was a very popular jazz musician, was born in New Orleans. During the 1920s, Armstrong developed his style as a solo artist, but his recordings with his bands, which were called the Hot Five and the Hot Seven, made him an international star. He toured continuously until he died in 1971. After Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans in 2005, many musicians lost their homes and had to leave the city. Two New Orleans musicians, Harry Connick Jr. and Branford Marsalis, raised money to build the Musicians Village. This community includes 77 homes and a music center where people can learn, listen to, dance to, and produce music.